going live. So we're going to do a chickpea kale skillet with a lot of spices. We're going to do a little bit different than the original version of it because they cook it with oil. And on this channel, when I'm cooking, I cook without oil. Why? Because I think that oil adds a lot of calories. It also can affect your LDL, which I'm trying to make sure that I keep low in myself. So having said that, let's get to it, right? So this, we're going to first start by turning on the oven. Front, light it. I love gas. Why do I love gas? Because it is infinitely adjustable. I'm going to turn this to a 4, which is a little bit low heat, right? So I'm going to just see how that does. So I'm going to let that heat up while I'm talking to you. So basically, the vegetables that we've got some garbanzo beans. We have some mushrooms, which I have pre-sliced just in half. I rinsed those off. They wanted these very dry. I still got a little bit of moisture in there, but I've let them set for probably half an hour. I'm going to also chop up some kale. I've got an onion. The kale's going to go in toward the ends, just trying to wilt that bad boy. I was going to put some spinach, but I don't have any spinach, so we're not doing that today. We've also got some thyme. We're going to just pull off those little leaves. I may even cut up that stalk a little bit, put that in the dish. I haven't decided. We're going to use some lemon juice. We're going to use some sauces just to saute, heat up the cumin seed. We're going to use some apple cider vinegar, some rice vinegar, some tamari. What is tamari? It's kind of like soy sauce, but without wheat. So we're going to use a ton of spices here. We'll talk about those. I may even add this one, a little bit of onion powder, a little garlic powder, a little onion powder. So basically, as this heats up, I'm going to just feel over the pan and see if I can feel some heat coming off there. I may turn that up a little bit, right? So we're going to just, while we're doing that, we're also going to get this onion ready, right? This onion right here. I'm going to basically just cut the ends off, pop, pop. My head's going to go away here while I do that, right? So let's adjust this camera so we can see that. I like a really big knife. I think I've talked about that before. I'm just cutting ends off, and I'm going to get rid of what I call the paper and the first layer of the onion. It doesn't have to be perfect. So you're going to see some of my vegetables aren't perfect here. Some people might throw a part of it away. I'm not going to do that. So this onion is going to get sauteed in with the spices and stuff like that. So we're basically just going to do a thin cut here. And like I said, it's going to cook differently if it's sliced differently. So I like some variability. I'm going to adjust the cut a little bit, sometimes cut it a little bit thicker, sometimes cut it a little bit thinner. I'm probably going to use half of this onion today. We're also going to finish up the cut on the mushrooms. So that should be, I might put a little bit more onion. I love onion. We're also going to put some garlic in this dish. I love garlic. Garlic is very good for you. And I would suggest if you can add more garlic in your life, that is an amazing vegetable that should be put in your life because it is extremely healthy for you. I can't remember the phytonutrient that it has, but it has been shown in studies to help with things like cancer, all sorts of things. So we've got us a little bit of garlic here. Once again, we're going to take the paper off. Once again, some people might not use this garlic because it's pretty dried out. It's been in my fridge for a little while now, but I love garlic. We're going to use 3 cloves today. They're not exactly the same. Where's my camera at here? So once again, we're just going to get the paper off. We're going to cut the ends. And we're going to get the paper off. Then we're going to smash it. I may even use my little meat tenderizer. I don't eat meat anymore. Haven't in a long time anyway. Will I ever eat meat again? I don't know. There's a possibility. I don't eat it very often. I mean, I don't eat it at all anymore. Just because I believe that in my past I've eaten too much meat. I used to love meat. The biggest reason I'm not eating meat is because I believe it is the healthiest diet you can follow is a vegan diet. Now, some people could make an argument for some level of meat. Maybe, but I would suggest to you most Americans eat way too much meat. And it might behoove you to start decreasing the amount of meat So in this dish, I'm using some garbanzo beans, some chickpeas. Why am I using that? That's how I get my protein, right? So if you are a vegan, I would suggest that the best way you can get protein is a bean or legume or peas. Those are the biggest sources of protein as a vegan, hardcore vegan. Are you hardcore vegan? You might not be. I think that you can still learn some stuff that uh, maybe you could do a meatless meal every once in a while. Maybe you can choose better forms of meat. I would suggest that maybe a wild caught salmon would be better for you than ribeye steak. When I did eat meat, I loved ribeye. So we're going to get all of our stuff kind of ready here. So it's all ready to go. I'm going to first just kind of toast, or what in the recipe they talk about is, all right, let's watch this technique. I'm going to use the flat of the blade. I'm going to just smash my garlic. And I'm trying not to make a mess here. Let's chop that a little bit. And let's go hardcore. Trying not to wake up my son. He's in there taking a nap. So trying not to get too loud. I don't want him to be running around while I'm doing this. So, oh, I left a little bit of the paper in there. So we're just going to smash this up a little bit. Have this garlic ready to go. And let's talk a little bit more about the hierarchy of health. So the vegetables are the highest form of health, in my opinion. So we're going to basically just add some apple cider vinegar, just a tiny bit here, just a splash. Oh yeah, that's pretty hot already. We're going to throw in a little bit of rice wine vinegar. We're going to turn on the fan so that we don't get, and a little bit of tamarind. That's definitely. All right, we've got us some cumin seeds. We talked a little bit about cumin has some of that acetyl salicylic acid that we like. We're also going to put some celery. Oh, celery salt. I thought these were celery seeds. We're going to put a little bit of that in the bottom there. We're going to toast up a little bit of Italian seasoning, which has some oregano and some other stuff. We're going to put a little bit more tamarind in here. Tamari, not tamarind, tamari. We're going to put us a little bit more apple cider vinegar. We're letting that heat up a little bit, get a little bit of brown to it. Now let's see, what were we supposed to do next? I think we're supposed to put the garbanzo beans in there. I might put the onions in now. Let those kind of cook up. We may add some more onions in a while. We're going to let those cook down a little bit. Earlier, I took the can, just a regular can opener, took the top off, I rinsed them, I drained them. Now we've got pretty dry garbanzo beans. We're going to put those in there. As things get too roasty toasty, we're going to deglaze with water if we need to. Maybe we'll just use some vinegar. I haven't decided. So we're going to let that warm through. We're going to get these all nice and coated with all the spices and stuff. We're going to take us some garlic. We're going to add that in now. We've got some smashed up garlic. And I will let that kind of warm up in here also. I love garlic. So like I said, we used 3 cloves for this particular dish. I probably could add more. We'd be okay with that, right? So we're going to start adding some spices. We got dry spices. The earlier you put dry spices in, it's okay when you're cooking. If you have, I'm going to put a little bit more Italian This is a blend that's got some oregano. I'll read off the spices in a little bit here. We'll just kind of like that onion powder, even though we got real onions in there. Let's onion it up a little bit more. We've got a tiny bit of coriander. Garlic powder. All I'm doing is I'm just shaking a little bit of this in there as we go. Some garam masala that has paprika, maybe a little bit of salt. My biggest problem with this dish is it might have a little bit too much salt for my normal tastes. A little bit of parsley flakes. What else do we got here? These are cumin seeds. I'm going to put a little bit more rice vinegar in here. We're going to start cutting up this kale. We're going to put the mushrooms in. We're going to start letting that cook down. An interesting verb that they use for cooking spices with a little bit of oil. They use oil. They call it blooming the spices. So they use cumin seed with oil. We're going to let this just kind of cook down a little bit. Let some of that water from the mushrooms deglaze and stuff. And we'll see how we go. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit more. We're going to start toward the very end. I'm going to put some thyme. We've got fresh thyme. I'm going to put some of the kale stock in here. So I'm going to bring this down so you can see what I'm kind of doing. I've got some kale here. I'm going to just rough chop it. Notice some of the yellow in there. Some people wouldn't use it. I do. If you're kind of scared of the yellow, cut out the yellow. I'm going to put some of the stock in there. Let that cook down with the dish. We're going to use a little bit of lemon juice. I'm going to just pour that in there. Try not to get the seeds. Let's put a little tiny bit of rosemary. What the hell? Oh, these are seeds also. I should have probably toasted those. Rosemary leaves. All right, let's go over here and just kind of take a look at what we're doing here. We're going to stir that up a little bit. Turn the heat up a little bit. Seems like it's kind of cooking slow to me. I'm calling this a skillet because we're kind of making this in a skillet. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit more. We're kind of coating all those spices over everything. So this is a really spicy dish. This means spices that were in the, you had the cumin, you had the thyme, and you had the oregano. Those were the original dish. We've added some extra spices because I love spices. I like exploring more with spices. And I think it's spices are extremely important in your diet, right? So there's a lot of things. I think I've talked a little bit about cumin. Cumin has basically the same elements as acetylsalicylic acid. So I think it was the Germans. They came up with acetylsalicylic acid. They originally derived that compound from willow bark, I believe. And cumin also has a lot of the same element of acetylsalicylic acid. So it is very good for you, and I think that it creates an amazing flavor profile. A lot of really amazing chili recipes get their taste from cumin. So it's really good flavor-wise, flavor profile. I think it pulls out some of what the Japanese call umami, right? So I was thinking about putting a little bit of coffee in here. I've been reading about how, like in chili recipes, one of the things that you can add is coffee, right? And I might experiment with that in the future here, adding a little bit of coffee to the cooking of some chili. So we're just letting kind of this water kind of to come off of this dish, letting this just kind of, I think it's got a little bit too much water for our purposes. So we're just kind of coat these garbanzo beans with these spices. So, and we're trying to deglaze. So right now it hasn't cooked to the point where we need deglazing, but I think that we've got enough fluid in here. It's going to take a little bit of time to cook that fluid off. So I've got this on pretty high heat. We've got it on a 7 right now, and we're just letting this cook down. The smell is amazing to me. I'll let you know what I think of the flavor. So last week we did a bulgur dish, and I think that in the tomato paste that I did, it was a little too wet for the dish. It was supposed to be a chopped salad. So we're still experimenting, still getting better in our cooking. And I would like to just say, if somebody knows how to cook better than me and who would love to come on the show, we would love to have you on the show and cooking with us, right? So there's always an open offer for you to come and cook with us, especially if you have an amazing dish. I'm going to just eat some kale, right? Kale is really good for you. I used to not be a fan of kale, but the more I eat it, the more I like it. We're going to cook that, let this cook down a little bit. We're going to put a little bit of kale on this. We're going to let it get to the point where it's wilted, where the leaf is just kind of a little bit more wilted, right? So we'll show you a picture of that when we get there. Let's come and take a quick look at what this looks like. It's got a nice simmer there, almost a boil. We're letting some of that moisture boil off. We're going to just kind of stir that a little bit. Don't want things to get black in here. Brown is a really good color. I love brown in the dishes. I may put a little bit of that, more of that garam masala. I might get my glasses and just read you some of these spices, what they've got in them. So as you get better with cooking, you might learn some of the spice profiles. This is an Indian spice, garam masala. It has paprika, chilies, spices, salt, turmeric, garlic, and saffron. Saffron is really helpful for you. Garlic, we already talked about. Let's put a little white pepper in there. What the heck? That's more of a Chinese thing, I think. Like I said in the post in the Facebook group, this is just kind of a experimentation with spices for me, because I like to kind of get better with spices. So I just want this to cook down, and I want some of the moisture to evaporate in it. Then I'm going to put this kale in here. It should not take very long to wilt to the point where I think that it would taste the best. To me, the biggest issue right now is I probably should have put the mushrooms in a little earlier. I would like them cooked a little bit more than they are so far. So mushrooms, I was watching an interesting video about mushrooms. They have a phytonutrient in there. It starts with an E. Can't tell you what it is right now, but it's really good for your health and your longevity, right? So I'm old. I want to get older. I want to watch my kids grow up. I didn't have to start having kids until I was much later in life. And I'm just deciding, is it time to start putting in the kale? I might put some of the bigger pieces in and just see how they start wilting. I'm going to leave them on top so they get a little bit less of the heat as we're cooking here. And I might have different levels of kale in there. Once again, I like different consistencies, different levels of cooking, cooked fluidness. So that's why I like to have different thicknesses when I cut. So I'm not always consistent in my cuts. I can remember watching a lot of shows with Gordon Ramsay and different people and talking about the consistency of your cut, right? So, but I like a lot of different varied levels of cooked throughedness, I'm going to call it, just because I'm going to try to make up words, right? So I love raw onions in small amounts in a dish, and I also love cooked onions in a dish. So maybe we'll cut up some very finely chopped onions on top of this, just to kind of give it a different flavor profile, right? So maybe you can add some onions, cook them, and put some Mark still needs to work on his speech, right? I'm gonna chop fine some purple onion here. Let's get my face out of the way and just show you what I'm doing. I'm just finely chopping some onion that I'm going to put on top of this when we're done, just for the hell of it, just because I can. And see how that adds to the flavor profile. I may not even use all of this. Maybe I'll throw a little bit of that in right now. I'm going to throw a little bit of that in right now, just because I want to. I want to see how that does, right? So the kale is still cooking down a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to just kind of get some different levels of kale. Put some more kale in there. Some of this kale is going to be really soggy because we put it in initially, and we're still going to let it cook for a while and just see how that proceeds, right? Like I said, I want a little bit more of the moisture out of this dish. And I definitely want my mushrooms cooked a little bit more through. I like mushrooms that are well cooked. I should have probably started with the mushrooms and worked my way from there. That's probably what I should have done. I think maybe in the recipe that's what it called for. That's why I call this Chaos Kitchen, right? So I get better and better as I go. I learn the flavor profiles that I like. We're going to let some of that kale. We may live with that amount of kale. Maybe I'll have this other in a kale salad. It looks like an amazing dish so far. Maybe we'll cut up a little bit of avocado on top of this. I've got a little bit of avocado that my wife used this morning. Tamari sauce. Remember, this is basically like soy sauce. It's probably got a little bit too much sodium. This dish can be a little high in sodium. If you're somebody who's dealing with blood pressure or something like that, you might want something else. Another thing that if you're a vegan, I highly recommend coconut amines. This is an amazing product. I don't have any financial benefit from showing those guys, but Bragg has some amazing products. If you're looking to be a little more healthy, be a little bit more vegan, coconut amines have some flavors that are very similar to soy sauce. And soy sauce has, traditional soy sauce has wheat in it, as one thing. So as we were talking about before, if you've got some problems with wheat, maybe you're gluten intolerant or whatever, you might want to go with Tamari. Has no wheat products supposedly in them, or whereas soy does. So I use soy. Some people don't want to use soy because of the sodium, the amount of sodium that's in it. So if you're dealing with blood pressure issues, you might want to think about that one. We're going to let this cook just a little bit more, and then we're going to plate it up. Sometimes I have too many filler words. So basically, when I plate this, we're going to let this cook down a little bit more. We're going to let that kale wilt a little bit more. And then I think we're pretty much done. We're going to plate this up, let you guys look at it, see what you think. If we get done before the half-hour mark, I'll let you know my thoughts. So basically, I'm going to, where did my avocado go? I don't really have that avocado anymore now that I'm talking about it. Maybe my wife took it. So I lied. We're not going to put any avocado on this. Maybe you want to cut up some fresh tomato on here, especially for men. Tomato is amazing. Really good for you. Oops. Oopsie, my kale jumped out of the pan. I washed the stove before we started. It will wash it again afterward. I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off on this. I think that we're just about done. I'm going to put a little bit of pepper on this. Heat off. Let this rest. Black pepper, the master spice. I love pepper. I'm probably going to put a little bit more Italian. Fresh ground pepper. I love it. A little bit of Italian seasoning on top. I would probably add some whole grain to this, maybe some quinoa, something else. Let's see, I call that taste. I'm gonna let this cool down just a little bit and tell you my thoughts. Pretty good. So throw some onion on here. There it is. All right, guys, have a great day. Let's cook again next Saturday. If somebody would like to reach out and cook with me, I would love it. You guys have an amazing Saturday. We'll see you soon. Men, avoiding death, cooking veggies. Have a great one. And bye.